Welcome everyone to the Coaster Spot. This is Alex, and it is another construction update for Iron Menace, filmed on November 12th, construction update number 3. And of course, you probably noticed the ride has gone vertical. All the track for the brake run has been put in place, and also the transfer track. So this is going to be a Bolliger and Maviard dive coaster with a beyond vertical drop at 95 degrees. But before we go and show you some more from the air, we're going to go back to closing day on October 29th and show you some in-park shots. Here is the Immelman footers. There is one more to be built, and we'll show you that a little bit later. And here's the middle of the ride with all these little footers pretty much finished. This is where the first drop in Immelman is, and that is the bottom of the lift hill with that tilted rebar cage right there. We'll talk more about that in a moment and why it is the way it is. But we can also see those square footers there in the center. Those are for the transfer track, and as I mentioned in the last update, I figured this would be probably one of the first places that steel goes up, and this is exactly the place where the first steel went up. And there they are, very ready for steel on top of them. And that cage there is for another footer just for the station. As we pan over, we can see two more footers. That tilted one that I was talking about, that's going to be for the bottom of the lift hill, and also another little footer as well to support the bottom of the lift hill. And here is the back portion of the ride, the footers for the Helix and the 0G roll, and a close-up of them. Lots of progress here as well over the last 2 weeks that we'll show you in just a moment. There they are. And then here's a quick look at all the track that was in the storage lot on that day. All those brake runs and the bottom of the lift hill ready to go in. And then a quick little shot of the construction site as you're driving down the entrance road. Not that much to show you, but a different view. And here's the look before you turn onto that entrance road. And let's take a look now at what it looks like today. That is definitely a change of the skyline and your first look at Dorney Park when you're driving down to Dorney Park Road. Wow. And that tilted loop is just going to be right there in front of you. It's going to be a really cool view with the trains going through that tilted loop that may or may not be inversion. We'll talk about that in an analysis video pretty soon, hopefully. But here is the close-up of the brake run track and the transfer track. Before we go any further, if you could, please hit subscribe, like, and comment down below. That helps the channel gain traction and allows me to do these videos. Also, if you'd like to see some sneak peeks and also high-resolution photos, I usually put those on Instagram and on Twitter, so check those out. The Coaster Spot on Instagram, Coaster Spotting on Twitter, and then there's a close-up of the station track that is still there with the bottom of the lift hill, and also some big supports that could be for the lift hill. I'm thinking they will be. I'm still a little confused why we do not see more steel and track arrived yet. I don't know if they're just having it come as needed, or if the manufacturer of all the B&M track, Claremont Steel near Cincinnati, Ohio, is just very behind like I heard they were. So hopefully they catch up, and that is not delaying steel erection, because this thing should go up really fast. If they had all the steel on site and they get all the footers done within the next week or two, I don't foresee this taking more than 2 months to build. It is not that long of a coaster at only 2,169 feet long. A good deal of it's already in with that brake run. So, as we take a look at the entire construction site here, one thing to point out is up in the upper right corner there, you can see that there's another footer poured for the Immelman. I think they did this so that the midway wouldn't be approached on anymore, but it is nearly done. They haven't poured any of the top portions of the footer for those yet in that area, but I'm sure they will pretty soon. And here's a look at what that looked like before, and you can see why they probably didn't take down that wall to do that footer quite yet. But in the construction plans, it does show that the fence line is pretty much going to be the same as where that construction wall was, but you know, it will be a see-through fence, so it won't look as claustrophobic as it did on closing day, of course. So And then in the bottom center there are a few footers there that still need the top portion poured. And then the back helix needs all the footers poured. There should be 5 different connection points. It's a big pit right now, so I'm not sure if it just needed a bunch of gravel underneath it to support that area, or if it's going to be all tied together. It's kind of hard to see from the construction plans that were submitted back in April, but we'll keep an eye on that. But I wouldn't be surprised if that is near done in our next update. But that is the only footers that have not really begun, as far as like the rebar that needs to go into the ground and poured. But obviously they are working on that footer. They've taken care of the groundwork really quickly, although it's a pretty easy site. The only thing they probably had to deal with is with the engineering there is it is on a floodplain. So that's one thing they had to take into account for. It's a 100-year floodplain, and it has flooded more than twice in the last 100 years for sure. But that's why Laser was always on those giant blocks. You never realized that. A lot of people would always comment why, oh, there was these wooden blocks that was on. It was a requirement to have the whole structure lifted up. That's why Laser looks so weird and so high up. Here is another look at that construction site with all that track. The catwalk only extends on one side beyond all the friction brakes and drive tires. If you don't know, magnetic brakes can't actually stop a train. They can just slow it. So it's not really necessary to have a catwalk for evacuation, and they just need a catwalk to access all those pistons that can lower and raise some of the brake fins that retract. And I believe it will be going a little bit further down the brake run, but it's only on one side. Dr. Diabolical had it on both sides, but I assume maybe they assessed that it really wasn't necessary to have it on both sides for access to everything that needed to be maintained and accessed. So why not save on money and not have it on both sides? Plus the queue will be on the other side, so it'll be neat to have that unobstructed view of that stuff. And then talking about that one footer at the bottom of the lift hill, it's angled because the forces of the lift hill aren't just straight down, they're also backwards. So that's why it's a 45-degree angle, and you can actually see the bottom of the lift hill supports right there below the brake run that need to be installed. So that is a lot of information in just 9 minutes. So woo! I am very excited about this thing. It looks great. Very orange. It's pretty much the same orange as Rougarou. Like, I didn't realize how close it was going to be, but it should look fantastic. It will definitely pop on the skyline. Completely different orange than Talon, so nothing to worry about there. And here's one last shot of all that fall foliage as it should be gone by our next update. So I had to get one last one in there. But thank you so much for watching. This has been Alex for the Coaster Spot. We should be back at least every 2 weeks. And as soon as steel really starts popping up, it will be weekly, and then if needed, more so than that. And here's one look at Possessed, because it's going to look very different from this view next year. Thanks again. Like, comment, and subscribe.